Hello, and welcome to a series I am going to call What the HoL, wherein I go into my notes on House of Leaves. I'm right here. So I am just going to provide a warning up front that there's going to be full spoilers. So if you haven't finished the book, stop watching if you don't want to be spoiled. The idea of these videos is that I'm just going to be going through my notes and my ideas and some theories and stuff like that. I don't have any unifying theories I'm going to be talking about in these videos. I will be making separate videos for that. I'm just literally going to go through the notes that I wrote on the book to help you come up with your own theories, to maybe point out some things that you might have missed. I've spent a lot of time on this book and I would like to share it. So in this video, because I'm going to separate this into sections, I have 68 pages of notes, and I have various other notes and pieces of papers and things in the book here. So yeah, it would take too long just to do it all in one video, and a bit too confusing, I think. So in this video, I'll be talking about everything from the cover through the introduction, and we'll stop when we get to chapter 1, and that will be the next video. So yeah, let's start. Let's talk about the cover itself. So the first obvious thing about the cover is that it is smaller. In my edition, I do have a ruler. I did measure it, and it might be a bit skewed because of how full my book is. It's not exactly binding, but in my edition it is half an inch instead of a quarter inch, which would be right there. So it is half an inch bigger rather than a quarter inch bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, like it is in the house. The house is smaller on the outside than it is on the inside. Another thing to note about the cover is the word house is in blue. We see that throughout the full color text. I think most editions are full color. And another interesting color on this page is the fact that a novel down here is written in purple, and purple is Pelafina's color. So if you're interested in the idea of authorship, that may be something to consider. Now, another thing that I'd like to point out is the spiral design on the front. I apologize for any noises. This is like my 5th time filming this video. I live in a house with 5 other people. I can't escape the noise however much I want to, so I apologize for any banging that you hear. I'm not going to edit it out. I'm just frustrated beyond at this point because of it. So anyways, let's get back to talking about the cover. We have the spiral design, which, if on the surface, is supposed to be the spiral staircase in the hallway. It also looks like a nautilus shell, which I'll talk about further along in the chapters there. It's a significant feature of the book, a theme, a symbol, if you will. But also, and I'll link my video about the grand staircase down below, to me this looks like the blueprint for the roof of the Palais Garnier in Paris, and I talk about the grand staircase. I won't talk about it here, but it mimics that as well. So that's it for the cover, at least. If you have a hardcover edition, you're very lucky because it has something in it that the soft cover doesn't. We have this. This is just a protector for the pages there. We'll talk about this image when it comes up in the appendices later. But if you do have the hardcover, the inside cover is a string of hexadecimal codes, and if you decode it, it will play a clip from the album Haunted by Poe. Now, Poe is the artist name of Mark C. Danilewski's sister, and she actually released the album Haunted to coincide with House of Leaves, the text. So if you have the first, or if you have the hardcover edition, the first, and here I'm going to out myself as not that much of a computer nerd, because I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to tell you the letters. So the first ASCII word is form, and it's followed closely by the word AIFF, or the term AIFF. And if you type the whole thing out in a hex editor and save it as an AIFF, you get a 2-second sound file of Poe singing Johnny Angry. I don't think she finishes the word angry, but that is the word that you can assume follows, and it's from her song Angry Johnny. I highly recommend that you give the album a listen to if you're interested at all in House of Leaves. So I found someone who actually took the hex code and put it into a AIFF file, and I'm gonna download it here and see if I have let's just put it into House of Leaves. See if I have a program that can play it, and see if we can hear it. I hope you heard that. That is really creepy. Okay, so these are just my notes that were continual notes here. We're gonna talk about the author page now. So this is the author page and the title page. And an interesting thing to note, and I wrote it down here very boldly, is this page is not bound with the others. And in my edition it is actually falling out. If you look, I'll show you the bottom because it's easier to see on mine. If you look at these pages, the way they are bound together, they're all like looped together like that. The author page is not in that. So I think that's an interesting thing to point out about the book, and in regards to authorship of the book. Another thing to point out is the font. The font of the title page and the author page, the font is Dante, which is the same font that is used in Pelafina's letters. Let me see if I can find one that's not too covered in notes. So Pelafina's letters are written in the Dante font, and this is written in the Dante font. So again, we can hypothesize about Pelafina being the author. We do have other fonts here. I'm just going to run through them quickly. I'll talk about them and the significance of what fonts are chosen later on. So we have Zampano, the Times New Roman. Johnny's written in Courier. The Editors is written in Bookman. Navidson is written in Book Antiqua. Karen is Helvetica Neuve. And Tom is American Typewriter. Okay. And I did add a few quotes here myself that I found and thought were relevant to House of Leaves. The first one over here from Nietzsche, written in Dawn. If we wish to outline an architecture which conforms to the structure of our soul, it would have to be conceived in the image of the labyrinth. I thought that was just very obviously relevant. And then this one, Gaston Bachelard, is actually referenced quite frequently throughout House of Leaves, and this quote I thought was interesting. And the houseman finds his identity, because I believe that this book is about more than a house. Obviously, it is about, one of the major themes for me was identity. So the characters finding themselves, whether the characters actually exist, the reader looking for the identity of various characters, like who is Johnny's father? Is Johnny actually alive? Who is Pelafina? Who wrote the book? Who is Zampano? Did Navidson actually exist? So there's a lot of question around identity in the book. And then we have contents, the foreword. I had no notes. The iconic introduction, or dedication rather, and then we move on to the introduction. So let's, I'm just going to point out, I'm not going to read the notes that I wrote on the pages, because some of them were just like impulsive thoughts that I wrote down. A lot of words are circled. There'll be words that are misspelled or words that are underlined. I'm not going to talk about those words because I have a different thing I'd like to explore with those words. So yeah, let's just hop right onto page 12 here. And we have this question posed, who knows where his name really came from, in regards to Zampano. This is Johnny. I'm not going to throughout this video, if the font is in Johnny's font, I'm going to reference it as Johnny writing it. If it's in Zampano's font, I'm going to reference it as Zampano writing it. I'm not going to get into the nuances of who wrote what. So Johnny is asking about where Zampano got his name from. And thank God for Google, because this journey, researching this book, would be a whole lot harder without access to the internet and being able to find things easily. So the character Zampano might be named after the only other character named Zampino, who is in the film La Strada by a man named Felinai, which is interesting because, and I'm gonna be flipping back and forth a lot. We have a possible reference to Felinai in Zampano's letters. Felin, very maybe reaching a bit, but yeah. So Felinai here. The film La Strada, Felinai said, is a complete catalog of my entire mythological world, a dangerous representation of my identity that was undertaken with no precedent whatsoever. And I thought that was really quite interesting, because that kind of is the same as what House of Leaves is as well. And then we also get down here, nom de plume, nom de guerre. So this is our first reference to Zampano as a soldier. And then on page 31, we get the next reference to his rifle. The next most obvious reference to him being a soldier. There is further on in the introduction clues as to what war Zampano probably fought in. Yeah. Over here on page 14, we have the introduction of the character Lude, and he calls Johnny Hoss. He says, "Hey, Hoss." So I thought that was interesting. I decided to look up what that meant. Hoss could be a reference to the character from Bonanza, and it could give us the first kind of physical description we get of Johnny as someone who's very kind of big and friendly. Which is interesting idea to think of. Not the way I pictured Johnny when I first pictured him, but you know, it could be a reference to that. But Hoss is also a slang term for horse. And part of what I was trying to do was connect Zampano and Truant and Pelafina in different ways. And back in some of Zampano's works, specifically on page 564, so here we have Zampano actually writing. We have a reference to a poem up here called Horse by Apollinaire. So that was me trying to connect maybe Johnny to this poem. Right there. Okay. The next page, we get our first reference to the cats. And cats, I think Mark Z. Danilowski really likes cats, because he even had his other series of Familiar, which is about a cat. And then we get further along here. Of course, Curiosity killed the cat. Yeah, so we have a lot of references to cats. On page 77, if I can find it, we get references to them as shades. This moat clawing, hawk-fearing shade. They are the only cats but cats to Kilkenny disappear, and I'll talk about what Kilkenny disappear means when I get there. But, you know, lots of references to cats. And then page 87, again, we get a reference to The Black Cat by Rilke, which is a poem. Yeah, and also on this page, page 15, we get Johnny Truant mentioning that he rented this movie, Bambi, and of course that is notorious for having the mother dying, and so that then calls into question Pelafina and whether she's alive or not. Yeah. Next page. We get the first of these words that are linked throughout the text. So they are kind of like high vocabulary words that stand out, that get used frequently between the different authors. So here we have the word deracinated, and here he admits that he learned it from Zampano's work, but there are other words throughout the text that it's not too obvious where he learned them from, unless you're picking up on the clues yourself. So yeah, deracinated, and then I decided to look up the definition because I'd never heard that word before, and it means to pull up by roots, to force people from their homeland, to liberate or be liberated from a culture or its norms. And I thought it was interesting that it was likely first used in Troilus and Cressida by Shakespeare, and I'm going to use this quote from there. Divert and crack, rend and deracinate the unity and married calm of states quite from their fixture. Which is where I think this book does. It diverts and cracks us, it rends and it deracinates us, and it's our calm state is disrupted from the fixture when reading this book. And he learns this book from page 145. Let me find it here. 145. Zampano uses it right here. Okay. There's not really much to note here. Of course, curiosity killed the cat. And then over here we have a reference on page 20 to carrion dawn for vultures. And to me that was a reference to Navidson's picture, which is the vulture standing over the emaciated little girl. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, this little bit of foreshadowing there. And then on page 22, we'll jump ahead. I'm going to talk about this note in a second, but first of all we're going to go down to another word, because I just talked about deracinated. So this is another word that stuck out to me, prolix. And he says, again here, your word. So in the introduction we're getting a lot of clues like directly handed to us. So yeah, prolix is a word used by Pelafina on page 633. Over here, prolix, we see that word there. And that word means having great length or dwelling on trivial details. And so this is, it feels like the book's calling me out at this point, because I seem to dwell on these little references and details myself, hoping to make some sort of unifying theory that I think I will never achieve in regards to this book. Yeah, so this is also the beginning of strange words that were used in Pelafina's codes and in Johnny's notes. We also have a list of names. Zampano's girls, as I called them. We get a reference to Beatrice, Gabrielle, Anne-Marie, Dominique, Elaine, Isabel, and Claudine. So my initial response was to go through and just Google each name individually. And I do think that they're significant. There is a larger thing connecting them together, but I thought I'd just go through them. Beatrice was Dante's lover in the Divine Comedy, and we know that Pelafina's font is Dante, so we're Pelafina and Zampano lovers at one point. And I put the quote, "From that time forward, love quite governed my soul." It's also an Edgar Allan Poe story where the narrator has monomania. He's obsessed with Beatrice's teeth. I have a lot of notes outside of this in regards to the body parts mentioned throughout all of House of Leaves. So I was trying to connect that as well. And that connection to Poe's, because that's a reference to Mark C. Danilevsky's sister's music name. And it means voyager, blessed, she who makes happy. Gabrielle means woman of God, and God is my strength. Gabriel, the male version of that, was the archangel defender of Israel. he was the one who tells the Virgin Mary about the conception, which again links to Polyphena and who is Zampano's, or not Zampano, but who is Johnny Truant's father. And then we have Anne Marie. Anne means favor or grace. Marie means bitter or beloved. And Anne was the name of Jesus' grandmother. Mary was the name of Jesus' mother. I was thinking at this point, Johnny Truant is a Messiah. I don't know. Dominique is a unisex name. That means of the Lord. It's the main character's name in The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. So this was a quote I found online. One of the more bizarre characters believes the values she holds cannot survive in the real world, so she turns from them. Yeah. Elaine, I also wrote like the origin of the name, means my God has answered me. Latin, it comes from aliena or alienus, from the Greek helios, meaning sun or sun. I'll add that to there, sun, right? So again, we have this question of the house is God, is something that I will talk about later on in the notes. So I was trying to link that to there. It was also related to Helen of Troy, breaking down the walls. I'm going to cover up this part because that's going to reveal the spoiler. Isabel is mother of John the Baptist. So again, this whole link to the Bible. And it means pledged to God or God is perfection. And Claudine, from Claudius, which means Latin crippled or limping. Or Clausius, which means shut or closed. And if we look at the crippled or limping note, we know that Navidson has trouble with his foot. We know that at one point Johnny hurts his toe. So there is references to them being crippled and limping, and this idea of shutting or closing a door. And then I googled all the names together, and it turns out those are the names of the hills in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu in the First Indochina War, which happened between 13th of March and the 7th of May 1954, as a prelude to what Americans will know as the Vietnam War. So this is what I'm assuming is the battle that Zampano fought in, that he was a soldier. We have lots of references to him being a soldier. Okay, and then the last page of the introduction. Here, we have an invitation, and I took full advantage of that invitation, and it says, you might try scribbling in a journal, on a napkin, maybe in the margins of this book. And I was like, I feel called out, because I am writing my own notes in the text as well. Now I said we go up to chapter 1, and there is something that happens here. We have this little epigraph to the book. Excuse my German accent. We have Muss es sein, which is German for do I have to. And this could be any number of things. These notes are notes that I took throughout, so you'll notice I wrote misspelled notes or underlined words and stuff like that. So I'm talking specifically about this Muss es sein. So it could be from the unbearable lightness of being, which is about a man debating whether or not to follow his wife to Prague. He says es muss sein, which meaning he has to, that he's fated to follow her. So that could be a reference to Navidson and Karen, his wife, about he has to follow her out of the house. Yeah, he is compelled to do that. That is how he was rescued. It says a lot about their relationship. Or it could also be from Beethoven's String Quartet, number 16 in F major, op 135, the last movement, which is called The Difficult Decision. There's 3 notes in there that are marked as Muss es sein, and it's rumored to be Beethoven's feeling of him encountering the great eternal. And I thought that was interesting. Us in the book, and the characters in the book, encountering this great thing that goes on forever. So yeah, that is the end of the introduction. We are now up to chapter 1, and I will do that in a separate video. Let me know if you have any additional notes on this, and thank you for watching.